You know those mornings that start with the smell of fresh coffee, soft sunlight, and the police, along with animal control, knocking on your door? I open up to find two officers standing there, one holding a clipboard, the other half hiding behind a guy in a shirt that reads Dangerous Animal Control and hauling a steel cage the size of a coffin. "We got a report," the cop says, "that you're keeping a dangerous animal not allowed in this neighborhood." Sounds like I've got a Bengal tiger hidden in my kitchen, right? But in reality, my so-called dangerous animal is named Ranger, an 11-year-old German Shepherd, a retired canine who saved multiple lives and now spends his days napping in the sun, occasionally chewing on a bone or asking for cuddles. And the source of this report? Who else but Karen, our HOA queen. Today, she's standing at the end of my driveway, arms crossed, wearing the triumphant look of someone who just saved the entire neighborhood from Godzilla. She yells across, "I told you, dangerous animals are not allowed in Magnolia Ridge." Sounds like she's protecting the community. But I know better, and you'll know soon enough, this was never about the dog. This is chess, and unfortunately for her, I'm not a pawn you can just sacrifice. Because if Karen thinks she can use Ranger as an excuse to push me out of my own home, she's about to find out she picked the wrong opponent. When my wife Sam and I bought this house, we weren't looking for a castle or the full American dream package. We just wanted a yard big enough for a dog to run around, a few neighbors who smiled and said hello, and a life where the biggest drama was who forgot to bring in their trash cans on Tuesday. And for the first 6 months, Magnolia Ridge was pretty much that. Well, except for one small detail. A detail that wore pastel blazers, carried the scent of power in her perfume, and always held a ticket book like she was signing eviction orders. Karen, our HOA president. I used to think HOA stood for Homeowners Association, the folks who protect residents' interests. But after meeting Karen, I was convinced it meant her overbearing authority. Karen had her eye on Ranger from day one. She asked me 3 times in 1 week, "Are you sure that dog is up to date on his shots?" My answer, of course, was yes, fully vaccinated, followed silently in my head with, "And he's a lot more polite than you." Ranger's a retired canine, better trained than some security guards I've met. He's got a nose for trouble. And trust me, he caught Karen's scent immediately. Back then, I figured she was just the kind of person who needed to control everything from the height of your grass to the color of your mailbox. What I didn't realize was that her hobby would turn into a full-scale campaign. And, spoiler alert, Ranger wasn't the real target. The target was the land we were standing on. Ranger was just the first piece in the trap she was setting. A week after the whole dog squad incident, I figured Karen might tone it down. But nope, she decided to upgrade her game to full-on primetime soap opera. That morning, I was feeding Ranger when I heard the roar of a diesel engine outside. I peeked out and saw a massive white truck, basically a coffin on wheels with huge red letters, Dangerous Animal Capture Unit. Behind it, a steel cage, big enough to hold a full-grown bull. And who was out there playing director? Of course, Karen. Pink blazer, oversized sunglasses, holding her phone like she was live streaming for the Karen News Network. "There, that's it. I just saw it try to attack a child," she screamed. Ranger, at that very moment, was sitting there, panting with a tennis ball in his mouth, looking like the cover of an Adopt Don't Shop poster. Karen handed the staff a blurry video shot from far away, some dog growling on an empty lot. She swore it was Ranger and that the victim was her cousin's kid. Minor issue. Ranger's GPS collar proved that, at the time, he was asleep in my living room. Oh, and that empty lot? 5 miles away. But Karen didn't care about facts. She signaled the animal control guy to move into my yard. When I asked for a legal warrant, she crouched down near Ranger, glaring at him like she was trying to provoke a reaction. I swear Ranger gave me a look like, "Want me to bark and knock her off her heels?" Thankfully, the police officer on scene stepped in. No warrant, no dog seizure. Karen froze, her face turning bright red. As she stormed off, I heard her loud and clear. "I'll get that dog out of this neighborhood, one way or another." And that's when I knew this wasn't about the dog anymore. This was the opening shot in a war, and she'd just picked the wrong person to go to war with. After Karen's failed raid, I knew it was time to stop playing defense. My attorney, Jessica, the kind of person who smiles warmly but delivers advice sharp enough to cut steel, looked me dead in the eye and said, "They don't want the dog. They want the house. And if I'm right, they'll use every dirty trick in the book, and some that aren't." Sounded like a crime drama trailer, but I knew she was right. So I called Rick, my best friend, a white hat hacker who once hacked a vending machine to give free snacks to the whole class. "You want me to go easy?" Rick asked. "Or make her change her zip code?" I picked option 2. I set up HD cameras all around my property, hooked them to the cloud, and launched a drone to patrol the neighborhood like my own personal satellite. Ranger watched from the porch like he was thinking, "Finally, you're taking this seriously." 3 days later, bingo, the drone caught Karen leading some guy in a suit, definitely not her husband, around my fence line, pointing at property boundaries and marking them on a map. Rick dug up his identity. The guy was a rep for a real estate company that specializes in snapping up land cheap and flipping it into resorts. And guess what? Company records listed the Magnolia Ridge HOA as a community partner. Jessica smirked. "Old playbook. Apply pressure, smear your name, force a sale." But they forgot one thing. You're not the kind of neighbor who stays quiet. So I started stockpiling evidence. Every violation notice, every video of Ranger playing with kids, every clip of Karen surveying my yard like she was bidding at a foreclosure auction. That's when I realized she thought she was playing chess, but I'd already switched to Chinese chess. And in Chinese chess, once you've cornered your opponent, there's no escape. The monthly HOA meeting rolled around. I showed up in a dress shirt and tie, carrying my laptop and a USB drive containing what I like to call Karen's greatest hits. The small Magnolia Ridge meeting hall was packed twice as full as usual. Word of the dog war had spread through the neighborhood faster than a free pizza coupon. Karen sat at the head table, blazing red blazer, wearing a smile, like she'd just won Weed Control Champion of the Year. She kicked off the meeting with a speech about community safety and dangerous animals, shooting me glances sharp enough to pierce my chair. When the resident comments portion came up, I stood. "I've got a short presentation on this subject." Karen snapped instantly. "Not on the agenda. Sit down." From the middle row, Derek, the neighbor who wears sunglasses indoors, called out, "Let him speak," and then a chorus of others joined in. Karen forced a smile. "Fine, but make it quick." I plugged in my USB and hit play. First up, footage of Ranger playing tug-of-war with kids, his tail wagging like a fan. Then a $10,000 community threat violation notice. And then, the knockout punch, drone footage of Karen leading the suit-clad guy around my property line, pointing at a map. The room erupted. An elderly neighbor blurted, "I knew it! She wants his land." Karen shot to her feet. "It was just a tree survey." I grinned. Funny those trees must talk, because that guy was asking about the price per square foot. The hall exploded in laughter and murmurs. Karen tried to keep her composure, but I could see it, the cracks forming in her so-called crown of power. And I was ready to swing a few more hammers. Karen was trying to force that "I've got everything under control" smile when I hit the next slide. On the screen popped up a PDF titled Strategic Partnership Memorandum, HOA, Magnolia Ridge, and Greenfront Development. The murmurs in the room instantly shifted to the sound of sharp inhales. Greenfront was the real estate company, represented by the suit in my drone footage. I zoomed in on the objective section, acquire Lot 27 my house, to create an entrance for the resort project, and right below it, a big looping signature. Karen Glass, HOA President. "It's just a draft," Karen blurted, her voice pitching high. I shrugged. "A draft? With your signature, the HOA seal, and a date exactly 1 week before you called animal control to my house? The room erupted. Derek shot his hand in the air and shouted, "She's trying to take his land by framing his dog!" The chorus of agreement rolled through like a wave. I didn't stop there. The next slide was a timeline: violation notices, dangerous animal claims, police visits, and then the property survey. All lined up neatly, like how to remove a resident 101. Karen's face flushed red as her eyes darted around for backup, but the other HOA board members had already scooted their chairs away, like they didn't want to catch shrapnel. I locked eyes with her. "You thought I'd stay quiet, sign the papers, and disappear. But you forgot one thing. I don't know how to quit." No one laughed this time. Everyone just stared at Karen, and her so-called throne of power started shaking in plain sight. I knew I'd just set off the final bomb. The only question was, would it explode here, or would we have to take this to court? Karen didn't wait for the bomb to go off. She shoved her chair back, gathered her papers, and made a beeline for the door like she was competing in the Olympic speed-walking finals. But life doesn't always go as planned. 2 sheriff's deputies were standing at the exit. One of them said, "Mrs. Glass, we need you to come with us to answer some questions about this contract." The room erupted in cheers. Derek threw me a high five so hard he nearly knocked over the water cooler. A few weeks later, Karen resigned. The resort project was canceled. And Ranger? He was still stretched out in the front yard, belly up, like the undisputed king of Magnolia Ridge. The neighbors threw a celebratory barbecue. Everyone was smiling, except Karen, who was probably somewhere telling someone she'd been overthrown by a dog and a neighbor with a USB stick. The lesson? Don't let anyone twist the law to make you guilty when you're innocent. And if they try, make sure you've got enough evidence to make them apologize, or at least change their zip code. And you? Have you ever dealt with a Karen HOA? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because I've got plenty more Turn the Table stories that will make you both furious and satisfied. Who knows? Maybe next time we'll catch a Karen live streaming right outside your front door.